welcome everyone. I want to introduce you to Mike and Ty from TMH. We're going to talk about shifts in loyalty, how COVID is reshaping customer loyalty solutions, trends, strategies, and technology. Technology is also a big part of this conversation. COVID has been a very big disruptor, sometimes destroyer of loyalty, but also very good positive influence in terms of helping us remember what the roots are, what's important about loyalty, coming back to it's not just about the platform; it's also about the customer experience. Understanding that loyalty is not a product necessarily; it's about the behavior. So we're here to kind of make sense of it all. We're here to understand where to go from there, and then we're going to give some advice at the end about what to do if you're a new player in loyalty or if you are trying to play the catch-up game. So we're going to start with a kind of fun question. Guys, what is your favorite loyalty program right now? Like, give me one and tell me why you like it. Tell me about the value, experience, tech.
My favorite is what the Air Miles platform. I know that it's not. It's had some problems as of late, but it has been the one that we have always used. You can redeem it for kitchen appliances. You can redeem it for tickets at like a theme park, all sorts of stuff. So it's just one that we've been loyal to.
How about you, Ty? What's your favorite?
For myself, it's the Scene Loyalty Program. Prior to COVID, we were going to movies a lot and we were redeeming those points and using that to enjoy times out with the family. Now, what we're doing these days is really collecting those points and being able to redeem them, whether it's just do takeout or just order things online. I mean, they do have rewards that you could do through like Best Buy, for example, or many other sites and get what you need, especially around the shopping holiday season.
My favorite one right now is Starbucks. I used to have like 10 different loyalty programs I would participate all the time, and now it's like kind of dwindled to three that are more related to my like daily spend. So Starbucks is our kind of gets us up in the morning as family. So Starbucks definitely doing all the points there. Starbucks has been one of my favorite loyalty programs for the longest. All right, so let's talk about the first shift. First shift, obvious kind of shift in COVID. Everybody's switching to digital because they're stuck at home. Depending on industry, 40 to 60% shifting from retail, from physical locations to digital to online. So if you are a retailer and you used to have 20% of sales online and 80% in retail and brick and mortar, it's kind of flipped for you right now. So it's also been nicknamed the digital onslaught, just in case you didn't know there's a name for this. What are you guys thinking? What are you saying?
Well, it has certainly been a noticeable shift. I mean, I've been buying online. My wife is watching things like a hawk on all the sites. It is a very interesting shift because it has been said that it's taken 3 years or even 10 years worth of online progress and rammed it into 1 year. And so people and companies have been struggling to make that shift, and it's the people who have done well are the ones that are able to create a seamless customer experience, and that starts off with the website being really really easy to use, and then it moves on to making the execution after so when they go to get the order at like a curbside. That is like the next phase, and then if there are any problems, how easy is it to fix those problems? How well does the customer feel that the company has come to their back for them? And that has been a big shift. And like according to McKinsey, 60% or so of customers will keep doing this after the pandemic is over. So they're saying that there's going to be a permanent shift to online. Everybody needs to be thinking about, and it's very important. If you're not on the game yet, you still have time. This is not going to go away. So now's the time to start thinking about it and coming up with a really good plan to make yourself accessible online.
Yeah, some businesses are playing the waiting game, are more kind of reflecting from working with clients they're waiting for the behavior to change back, whereas they don't realize that COVID became basically a major digital transformation force, and a lot of clients are not going to go back. They were waiting for this for the long time.
Well, like the challenge that they're probably going to run into is if you look at what the likes of Blockbuster, they were waiting for the shift to shift back, and it never did, and they're no more.
Also, big reflections more about how companies make that shift. So, what do you do with your retail staff when you don't have employment for them? And I know some companies literally try to move the best reps to the call center, that because call center is getting overwhelmed. Because now people either do digitally, and if they have an issue, if the platform's not there, they will call the call center. And now the company doesn't have a call center, so they take all the best reps from retail, they move them to call center. And of course, everyone's hiring digital staff. Everyone's hiring do you have a developer? Do you know a company?
What is the biggest challenge is a company that is traditionally not a technology based company having to wrap their minds around this and having to plan for this. Some would say that they've had a year now to get their heads around it, but that year has been very fluid. And I would say that yes, they've had a year to get their heads around it, but it's been like a year of shocks, and things have been going left and right and up and down. And there's this hope with the vaccines that everything will move back to normal, but it is unlikely that we're going to see life go back to normal fully because of these shifts, because people have realized, I can work from home now. Oh, I can buy online and not have to go out there. And that is what is going to force these companies to really have to think about what they're doing, how they're doing it, looking for the expertise, as you mentioned. That's all very, very important stuff.
Chipotle is a good example here. They've launched the loyalty program in 2019. In a restaurant business, loyalty is kind of table stakes. Like everyone has to have some kind of loyalty program. COVID hit, and then you had basically this massive gap where some restaurants, some food retail places had a good loyalty program, and they grew, like Chipotle, 50% growth in 1 year, in less than a year actually. And other ones, because they don't have a digital presence, they don't have an integrated loyalty program into the digital presence, people stop using them, or they have to go through like Uber, DoorDash, which we'll talk about later. All right, let's talk about the next shift. So shift in terms of what do we find valuable? So definitely a shift in a COVID economy in terms of what people find more valuable, what they actually want to earn. You guys already mentioned, Mike, you mentioned air miles, but you're not spending it on flying. And Ty, you mentioned scene, but you're not spending it on movies. So there's definitely a shift there. So tell me more about that.
Well, I would say that value has been, it's always been a point in folks' minds, whether it's been, going into the food store and looking at various different types of tinned tuna, and you're thinking, oh, well, this one's $1, this one's 50 cents, maybe I'll go for the 50 cents one. So, that type of value thinking has always been there. But that translates well into the type of program that people want to follow. So it has to be relevant to them. As you said, you use with the Starbucks one, which is a great one. It's actually one of the top 10 ones. And, it is relevant because it is something that you use, but it's also very easy to earn points. And you are able to easily redeem those points for something valuable. So Starbucks is willing to give up certain things like a free coffee or something like that, a free sandwich, and those are things that they make a lot of money on. So the fact that they're willing to give those up makes the customers see, okay, this is a real program. This is something that I can get something real out of. And it's something that I value as a customer. So that is a very important point. And then on top of that, they already had a very well honed process. So the customer experience was already there. Now they're really seeing that loyalty program because this is our this is like our big day out. My family, we spend most of the week at home, and we have like one drive per week where we go out and we get our Starbucks, and then we go out into the countryside and just drive around so that we're not in like our backyard. It fits into our lives, and it's a good program. It's well executed.
What happens when you don't have great value or great customer experience?
When you don't have a great loyalty experience, what ends up happening is your brand recognition really just drops in value. So what that really means is your presence in this very saturated world that we live in, with so much knowledge, so much information always presented to you, whether that's social media, Facebook, Instagram, or whether that's a very nice email that you got. What really matters is having that presence right now, especially in the digital world where you're not meeting people or talking to people face to face, or you're not shopping at stores just to interact with people. Now it's about how do you get in front of these customers' eyes without having to create this. You have to focus on the needs, and that's where it's important to have customers that understand that you understand what they need. And that's where you're, without having that loyalty presence, you may fall into the shadows and not be able to be seen across the very busy markets and the very busy competitors that are out there right now.
Yeah, I like that. In fact, loyalty can really help you. So if you are a retailer that was mostly focused on your product, and let's say you didn't have a loyalty program, you're trying to reconnect with a customer that doesn't come to your store anymore. Loyalty can actually help you create those really great experiences.
And also, one point that I just like to make on the back of that one is that with if you picture how fast you scroll through like your social media feed, there's a lot of things in there that you don't even pay attention to. And so being relevant even in that space is very hard to do. So it's very important that you have the right strategy in order to get into people's minds. And part of that is having a really good loyalty platform that they want to use. Therefore, they have you already in their mind when it comes time to make a choice, such as food, coffee, whatever.
Yeah, a good picture I try to use to visualize this to like retailers or restaurant chains is um, people will travel to when they used to be buy go to stores to buy things, they would go to their proximity, typically within a 10-kilometer range. And your primary competition was physically based, literally the strip mall that you're nearby, right? Nowadays, your competition is not the physical location, a strip mall. It is the companies that are advertising and are engaging in your social media feed or in your whatever digital presence you go to. That's your so instead of strip mall, it's your Facebook feed. Yeah, for sure. So let's do shift to fight or flight. It's kind of a two opposing behaviors that we're seeing in companies. Either they are turning to desperation, they're offering like crazy deals, like United Airlines are kind of 2 for 1 or 3 for 1 on their miles, or innovation, and that's the kind of flight, and those are the ones that are prospering, where they're looking at ways how they can either partner with other vendors to grow their sales, or they innovate their product, like they completely change their product.
One of the things that I've also been reading and seeing is the innovation and the partnering is the key to surviving this thing. Um, you know, there's there's a stressors pyramid. Where basically at the bottom level is do I have a place to eat? Do I have food? Do I have a home? Things like that. Once you get past those, then you move up to something more advanced. Do I have a job? And then once you have that, and you're like, do I have a car? And then eventually you move up to the top of the pyramid where everything's good. You don't have any real stressors. So this pandemic has definitely put companies in a similar pyramid, and you're basically striking on that point. There are ones like the Uniteds who are at the bottom now trying to find food and they don't quite know how. And then there's the other ones who have already figured out, well, by partnering and by leaning on each other, we can actually move ourselves up with the pyramid and then have a fairly cohesive strategy for moving through the potential landmines that are moving towards us. So the innovation and the partnership, no matter how you do it, has to be there. It's a key component. And as Ty mentioned earlier with the scene points, the fact that he's using movie points in order to eat out now, not eat out, but do like a curbside pickup at, say, like a Milestones. That is a really big deal. But that is a great form of using a partnership to get through this thing.
That's a really good point. I actually have another story here of Luna Cinema in UK. So we already mentioned Cineplex. That is basically the movie program here. Luna is a cinema chain in UK, and again, the similar problem where their main product is offered indoors, and in lockdown, no one's going to go. So what they end up doing is they shifting their product to outdoor, as in they would rent an entire park. People would bring their lawn chairs, still physically spaced, because outside gathering were allowed. They'll set up a massive tent. They can still play their outdoor movies. So they would innovate. And in that case, they always partner. So the park they selected wouldn't be like out of the place. It would be in the middle of a city. So they would actually partner with restaurants around the park. And they would grow mutual business. So the restaurants would promote them as well. And that worked really well for them. So yeah, innovate is definitely the right approach here. Don't simply wait, hoping things will get back. We already talked about some of the behaviors won't change. Don't wait. So definitely one of the shifts in the industry shift to aggregators, or hey, if I don't have an online purchasing platform, or if I don't have an online loyalty platform, I'm going to switch to someone that does, like an aggregator. And there's lots of uproar and all the way down to kind of government complaints and government cases where, someone like Uber Eats or DoorDash, if you're a restaurant, if you're a small restaurant, privately owned, family owned, they're going to eat 20, 25, 30% of your bottom line. So great, you can integrate quickly. You can get you can now sell quickly. But between the delivery fee, the platform fee, all that stuff, not only do they take a big cut, but the big one that restaurants actually upset about and primarily is that they don't own the customer anymore. They don't have access to the customer. In fact, it's really easy for the customer to pick another restaurant, and they're worried how they're going to regain control.
So that is certainly a noticeable problem that has started to appear since the pandemic. Work that we had done previously, you would see people choosing to go to these platforms in order to get recognition, in order to get their name out there. They were willing to take a bit of a cut in order for people to find out about them, because they knew that, back before the pandemic, they would probably then sidestep with the platform to save the fees and go right to the restaurant. But now that's not easy, or it's almost impossible. And then, as you mentioned, once the person is hooked on that platform, and these are key platforms, it's just like an Amazon for food. Even I find myself, whenever I want to buy something, my thought is go search on Amazon. I don't even go to Google. I go past Google right to Amazon, and then I search for it there. And I've been trying to get myself out of that habit, because I see what the damage that it's doing. But it is very hard for a restaurant, especially as you said, a standalone or a very small chain, to depend solely on like an Uber Eats. Now, one thing that I would like to see, and I'm not sure if this is possible, is part of that social duty that people feel to buy local. People are buying local now more than ever, and they're doing it out of out of that social duty, and it is unlikely to continue after the pandemic, says McKinsey, but for now it is certainly happening. And a way that you can enact that social duty is to actually call up that restaurant and go to them and do a doorside like pickup. You can. It is making sure that the money goes to the restaurant. You know, the Uber Eats, they will always be okay. They will be fine because they've got all sorts of different, restaurants and whatever's on there. But the little mom and pop shop won't necessarily be okay. And so this feeling that I'm already saying right now is a sense of loyalty, and that is loyalty to my local community. And it is one thing for them to be able to have their doors open and we all just walk by and go in to have some food, but they can't do that now. So you're seeing this across all over the place, is this sense of civic duty to we really got to help these guys out.
Yeah, chances are if a restaurant's listed on a DoorDash or Uber Eats, they have a phone number. You can call them. You can order remotely. The hopefully they deliver. Like if you don't want to leave your house, but definitely there's a lot of restaurants in U.S. There's a gentleman Matt Jennings that is calling for some type of coalition, some type of kind of organized effort between multiple restaurants because small and pop shops, privately owned, family owned restaurants, they probably don't have money to kind of even run a loyalty program, get the customers back, compete with Uber. However, you come together, or you're part of a conglomerate, or you run a coalition program.
Yes, because I'll reference McKinsey one more time, and they said that 60 to 75% of consumers have or will try a different process, a different shop, a different method of shopping since the pandemic, and that is a very big number of people.
I'd also like to add a point on this. End of the day, the customer's needs are need to So end of the day, the customer's needs are important. And to understand that, we have to know what our customers' habits are and what their loyalty is to that brand that they've been used to. The only way you can get this is to really start working with these partnerships. And one of the gaps that I found was in the past, it was always about just providing a templated loyalty solution to everyone. And that just seemed to work because those times it was just about brands just constantly getting a simple solution up and running, give them a loyalty reward program, and then it's good to go. But what we're starting to see is over the trend change in the past many years, is it's all about data. How much do you know about your customer? How loyal is this customer to your brand? Have they been shopping with you for the past 10 years? Have they been buying for the last 5 years? These are critical questions that you have to ask yourself as a business so that you can start collecting this information and start analyzing it and making really good decisions. That's going to help you overcome the dependencies on these Uber Eats and DoorDashes out there because end of the day, your brand is only going to be recognized with your engagement directly with these customers. And the best way to do that is to start thinking about integrations with disruptors already in the market. There are plenty out there, but then also being a hybrid that just works with all these platforms, but you're giving the customers your experience. It's always your brand behind it. That's always going to be selling the vision behind your company.
That's a great point, Ty. Especially if I can imagine, let's say, a retail chain had both digital and physical experiences. Maybe they felt they have a lot of data from the physical interactions with the customer, and now that type of experience has decreased. But within digital, there's so much easier to capture customer behavior data and to actually know. First of all, the behavior is probably different than in retail. The loyalty pattern is different in retail, but there's just a lot easier to get data points and to rediscover who your customer is on digital and how the behaviors have changed. And to your point, it's also it's something you have to do, something you should do, it's something you should care about what the behavior is, what they want, in order to create the experience they want, in order to retain the customer. Otherwise, they're going to go to somebody else. Like it's really easy to switch. Loyalty online is a much more volatile. Mike mentioned that too. People switching to other companies. They're comparing now more digital experiences versus physical experiences, and digital experiences tend to be similar.
If you think back to those of us who remember when the internet was in its like its infancy, and you looked at the sites that were online, they were very simple because the technology was very simple, but the pages were just the info pages. They sort of gave you a very brief idea about what a company was about. But you knew that all of the major companies would have one. Did all of the small companies have one? Not really. And then as the internet grew throughout the 90s and into the early 2000s, you would see that all of a sudden, with the internet boom, everybody wanted to have a shop online. Everybody wanted to do that. And what caused that, with the bubble to pop was, of course, the lack of execution. And so you ended up having this one-sided way of looking at things, seeing the internet as this gateway to new sales and all sorts of stuff, but not thinking thoroughly through the entire plan. And so I would argue that yes, the CEO or the CIO is now very important because the internet is so mature and the pandemic has caused that digital revolution where online buying is so important. But at the same time, the physical execution has to be there. And so not only do they have to stand out, so maybe perhaps the Squarespaces out there are something that give you that easy way in, but that could be like a foot in the door while you're thinking about maybe I should have a customizable plan. Maybe I should be thinking beyond just being there and making it easy for me, but how do I make it easy for my customers? And how do I make that experience unique? And how do I make it seamless? And so you can use these tools as a way in, but you really need to continue to think. This is not just loading yourself in there and then everything's going to be fine. You need to continually evolve because things are continually evolving.
Right. Let's go to one of the last shifts we want to talk about here is because the customer is switching to digital, the organizational strategy is switching to digital. So imagine a lot of companies, a lot of retailers, restaurants, chains used to think of a strategy in a more, more of the view was coming from from brick and mortar. So that's where the strategy was. Now more of the revenue is coming from digital. So now it's the shift that technical strategy is the organizational strategy.
So this is where, as Ty mentioned, like your data is very important. You have more data than you even know, and it's in all sorts of places. And being able to bring that together into a central place and apply logic to that to turn it into decision making, actionable intelligence is something that is critical. Now, obviously, a larger firm can pay for a massive like data warehouse that can help them with this. Smaller firms maybe not so much, but those are even coming down in price because of the cloud. The cloud is becoming a huge impact on that side of things too. Databricks, and I know that most people probably don't even have a clue what that is, but what that is the latest evolution in like data warehousing, and it is entirely cloud based, as now that has come to full maturity, and it has brought the price of this type of decision making intelligence down. And so it makes it affordable for the medium sized companies and even some of the small sized companies. But even if you don't have access to that stuff, you can do it on your own. You can figure it out. You can have your fingers on the pulse of what's happening in your company and what people previously liked to do with your company. That hasn't changed. So what you need to do is you need to figure out, how can I make it happen with this new way of operating?
So I think these platforms help you, to your point, help you to get started, but really quickly you realize that it's not about just making it easy for you. It also has to make it easy for the customer.
Well, it's very interesting, because with the maturation of the cloud, even in the past few years, it has become a very powerful tool for making things go online, making your servers go online, or even a small a computer can now be online, and this can then shrink your costs, because if you think about it, over time, um, maintaining that stuff all costs money, and if it's in the cloud, it is not the end all and be all of everything, but at the same time, it will shrink your ongoing costs if it's used wisely. So one story that comes to mind is, we have worked with like a data scientist who is very, very clever and very good at making what the data tell a story. She was working on a gas station chain's their data, and what she noticed was that that whenever someone bought cigarettes, they would also buy lottery tickets. And she mentioned to them that if they ran a campaign on those two products at the same time, they might do very well. And so they did do that. They followed her advice, and the campaign went over the moon. It was absolutely wonderful, and they made a lot of money out of it. But that just shows how, when looking at the data, it could be anything mundane that you don't realize can be important, and you look at it with the lens that she looked at it with, and all of a sudden you have something that could really help you out as a company. And that is why it's very important, as we've mentioned, to look at your data, to do that and try to figure out, is there something that I could be doing that will capitalize on customer behaviors? And as you've mentioned, Adam, it is so much easier to grab that data now because it's all online, it's all digital.
So what advice would you give to a small restaurant chain or small retail chain, or maybe a larger one, as they're trying to kind of think about the shifts and think what they should do in context of loyalty?
The whole basis behind any loyalty program is that you have to be willing to give something up. You have to be willing to give something to your customer, and it needs to be of value to them. Customer experience is still king. Basically, make sure that your web experience for them is smooth, easy to use, seamless, drives them to create a transaction, and from that transaction, the post-transaction experience is equally important. Make it easy for them to get whatever product they have, whether it's curbside pickup or shipping, and if there are any hiccups, own it and try to make the best of it, and I guarantee you your customers will reward you for it. The next one is to shorten the time that it takes to get noticed. Look at your data. It sounds like a scary subject. It's not as bad as it sounds. If you look at the various little bits of data that you have, whether it's, cash register totals or whatever, it could be a file on your hard drive. Use that data to figure out how your customers behave, and then try to come up with something that is relevant to them to get you noticed while they're scrolling through the 50 million things in their Facebook feed. The last thing is partnerships innovations and hook integrations. If you are able to create new value, new product modifications by partnering, by thinking of new ways to do things, integrating with different systems or companies,
To further add to Mike's point, a customer's journey is important for you to understand what's actually happening to your customers from the moment that they walk into your store all the way down till they decide they want to write a review about you. And maybe they had a great experience or they had a bad experience. And then what makes that customer want to come back again? This is information that you're only going to know by collecting it in the right ways and be able to elaborate on that data and be able to talk to your customers and try to engage them in the right way that they need access to information that you probably you didn't know you had. The only way to do that is to start opening your eyes up as a smaller company and start thinking about what are the integrations that can be done to collect that kind of information, and then start expanding your footprint into the side of the world. Back in the days, it used to be about buying a massive platform and paying hefty licensing costs to get these platforms up and running. But this day and age, it's all about slicing things down into what do I need? If you need this piece of functionality, or if you need this piece of uh, goal that you're trying to deliver, you can find these integration partners. And once you find these partners, it's not just enough to just say, hey, I have a partner who will take care of everything and the problems are solved. That partnership has to evolve, and there has to be a story you can find and tell about your customers by having these partnerships. And to have that domain knowledge in house is very critical to be able to understand that if you had a partnership that, for example, Shopify's out there or big commerces, there's a lot of e-commerce platforms out there. But it's not enough to just say I have an e-commerce platform integrated and all of a sudden I could take payments online. What happens after that fact? There's a lot of things that we need to start thinking about, and that journey is important. And
Yeah, cloud's making so much more sense in this context, in for many reasons. One is it, yeah, lowers the entry point, like it's cheaper. The other one is partnerships. When you're leveraging partnerships, it doesn't make sense to like start integrating systems. It makes more sense that, hey, can we put data in one place that's on cloud, everyone has access to. A lot of POSs are moving to the cloud as well. So geek out here for me. Give advice on introducing or growing loyalty and how technology is different now.
the cloud has changed the way we used to think. I mean, before it was always about building, purchasing large scale products or building customized platforms that solve your immediate needs. But what's happening now is everything is about open connection, open communication. Everywhere out there, if you talk to banks, if you talk to e-commerce sites, if you talk to anybody else, they all have open communication set up so that you could talk to their data. So it's important to understand how you communicate data across different integrators out there. And to be able to integrate on those platforms is the key to success, in my opinion. In order to succeed as a small business, you need to be able to understand what are the various types of integrators out there that you can leverage, so you don't have to waste your resources in-house to solve these problems. There's a lot of interesting ways you can actually start right away. If you opened up a company, you could start taking payments within a matter of one day, and you could start collecting all kinds of other data within a matter of a few weeks. But to get to that, the business has to be open to understand that there are differentiators and disruptors already involved in the market, and we got to catch those players in the right way.
Difficult. Like if you have a right partner, if you have someone that has the knowledge, have the experience, it's actually not difficult and it's not nearly as costly. It used to be when you want to launch a loyalty program, you have to like a $1 million ticket price. Not anymore. Like there's so many options in there.
Migrating to the cloud seems like a scary idea for a lot of companies, but if you think about it, it's a natural evolution that's already happened and it's already been happening for the last many years. There's big players in the market that have already created the environments for you, so you don't have to think about things like security, availability, all these things that are scary terms sometimes when you're looking at it from a business point of view. How secure is the cloud? When you start going into that depth and you start looking at how data is protected in the cloud, you don't have to second guess anymore because the companies and the brands behind the cloud is very well protected, and there's a lot of avenues that are there out there right now to govern that process for you. What really matters right now is you have to look at your business from a simple view of what happens if your business is operating, you're having a very busy day, you're having a lot of traffic flowing into your website, and all of a sudden, uh, the performance is performing bad. All of a sudden, your customers' transactions are timing out. What are we going to do then? Do you have a strategic plan in place to scale? What happens if it's a special Black Friday sale and you decide to run a special promotion? All of a sudden, you have a flood of customers coming to your site, and all of a sudden, you're realizing that you just haven't planned for that scale. That's important questions you have to ask yourself, because if you're seeing revenue growth happening right now, especially now with COVID and your digital presence is growing, what's going to happen when you start having a lot of foot traffic coming in and you have people purchasing and all of a sudden your website crashes? You want to prepare yourself for things such as scalability. And that's where it's important to understand that cloud opens the doors for these topics. And it introduces something called application modernization. How much has the organization thought about modernizing your solution? How scalable, in the sense that, hey, if I have a large set of customers coming in and purchasing, am I ready to scale as needed without paying a hefty fees up front? So that's where the power of cloud comes in. You really only pay for what you're using. And that's important, you have to understand, because back in the days, it's all about paying for these data centers and paying for hefty licenses that just didn't make sense. Now, if you look at it, it's more like, what do I need to operate day to day? Those are the kind of questions that we're here to help explain and answer. And I'm hoping that will give you more insights into why moving to the cloud and modernizing your solution will work.